Welcome back to the Global Business Report with me, Boason Omofaye. In a bid to retain the over $6 billion spent on medical tourism by Africans abroad, the Export-Import Bank is partnering with the Nigerian government to construct a 500-bed health facility estimated at $300 million, which will be completed in 30 months. And joining me to discuss this story is Economist Gospel Obele, who's joining me online. Thank you so much, Gospel. It's good to see you this morning. Let's start with the $300 million Africa Medical Center. Is this an example of the type of infrastructure that Nigeria really needs on the healthcare side?
Yeah, good morning, Boason, and thank you for having me again. So fundamentally, it would be a yes, but there are also different concerns to that response in a sense. And that's because this is what we need, but it's coming off much more reactive than proactive in the sense. And reactive because on many grounds, we've lost a lot of very talented doctors. On many grounds, Nigeria recently, found itself on the red list, and part of which the conversations have been the fact that we don't have the right health infrastructure to survive another pandemic, as it were, another variant, as it were. So on many counts, we are positioned as a reactive institution or a nation when it comes to healthcare infrastructure delivery and the likes. Further also is the fact that our solutions have not been inclusive or strategically inclusive enough to reach the last mile. So in as much as it sounds as a very good idea, I want to look at it from a sustainability and a proactive response standpoint. And on those counts, I don't think it makes sense.
Well, President Buhari lamented the brain drain impacting Nigeria's medical industry or healthcare sector. Do you think infrastructure like this by Afreximbank can reverse the trend, or is there another issue of proper remuneration for medical staff, incentives, training, the ecosystem that can make your medical industry or healthcare industry thrive as a country?
All right, just like many other policy issues or infrastructure concerns, the challenge here fundamentally is the culture. All right, I don't see a one-off project as like this, all right, dealing with the issue of human capital / brain drain. The conversation around brain drain, the cuts across just the health sector into many other sectors, technology and all that. All right, we have a rising conversation of skilled young people who are looking for more intentional markets to deploy those skills and earn comfortably, all right, doing that. Then as well with infrastructure, right? So infrastructure is just one of the enablers, all right, to scale for maximizing talent and all of that. And in this case, yes, it ticks the box, but it's still one out of the many solutions that would be interconnected, all right, in terms of what is required to reduce brain circulation or brain drain, as the case may be.
Do you think this infrastructure, for example, $300 million, could possibly attract further investments in Nigeria's medical industry? Do you see this as a curtain raiser? You think this is something that other investors in the healthcare medical industry will look around Africa and around the world and say, look, let's go to Nigeria, let's uptake on this?
Yes, I think fundamentally it's a good place to start, and it holds a lot of potential. But that potential, the ability of that potential being maximized, the function of a level of collaboration, political will, all right, and inclusion, all right, required to scale a project like this. So I'm talking about the need to look at this project from a regional standpoint, as well as from a state standpoint, all right, as well as all of the factors required to effectively onboard this plan. So until we can think about it from a more holistic impact and collaborative standpoint, I don't think that we'll be able to unlock the investment potential of this particular health sector project. So a lot more has to be done around planning holistically impact and strategic collaboration to scale the cultural requirements in that space when it comes to attracting investments.
Yeah, but again, here you have the Central Bank of Nigeria, for example, now mainstreaming as part of its development finance policy outlook and actions in terms of research and development locally for universities, research institutes, and all of that, and also trying to raise up hundreds of billions of naira to support our healthcare sector. Do you think this is also working together in the same direction?
I mean, from what we've known from the CBN engagement, there seems to be a strong disconnect with the aspirations and drive of the fiscal policy stakeholders in the sense. And that also presents a perception around the CBN delving into sectors and interest areas that's not its primary core. But then again, in as much as that's a valid conversation on the table, I would go back to the conversation of collaborations, all right, effective collaborations, and as well as scaling with other smaller institutional stakeholders to drive this. I don't think the central bank and the fiscal policy alone can effectively lift this off the ground in terms of scaling investment and unlocking health sector infrastructure. You know, a lot of all this funding, research, and all that already exists in the tertiary institutions, but we've not been able to, you know, look at it in terms of impact and holistical plan and framework, all right, and effectively onboarding the right stakeholders to drive the necessary investment or cultural change in this space as it were.
But how far away is Nigeria in terms of competing with India, for example, the UK and the US? When you talk in terms of medical tourism, about $6 billion US, Nigeria accounts for a chunk of that across frontier Africa speaking. So do you think this, if we put this $300 million facility in place, then we'll be able to scale back? Or do you think there will still be such a very strong need for Nigerians to seek medical advice, medical treatment, whatever, in big economies and other front leaders such as India, the UK, and the US? Briefly.
I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter. A one-off infrastructure project, no matter how big the size, all right, cannot fix Nigeria's solution in as much as it's a good start. So a lot more enablers have to come to play, all right? Institutional engagement, partnerships with all the right stakeholders, creating an enabling environment for that sector to thrive, and empowering the right human capital. You also think about budget integrity when it comes to the health sector as a whole, all right? And how much of incentives are made available for talent locally, in the sense. If you look at India, UK, and the United States, a lot of all the success that has been attained over the years have been driven a lot on these collective enablers, not a one-off infrastructural solution in the case. So I don't think as a standalone, it has the potential to unlock all of that. All right, a lot more is required to effectively unlock that medical tourism potential, as it were. And until that is done, all right, I don't think we may see any fundamental shift going forward.
Let's put some food on the table. The IMF report talk about the impact of food prices being the primary driver of inflation in sub-Saharan Africa. Give me your take.
All right, so in my own opinion, I mean, the IMF is the IMF, but fundamentally, I don't think the story is complete in the sense, because the conversations around food inflation are strongly a function of cost push inflation, all right, coming from structural deficits that already exist in the sub-Saharan African economy. So what we see is not the problem in a sense, it's just an effect, all right, from a causal mechanism that already works from a structural angle. And that's breeding some form of cost push on the food inflation numbers. Knowing fully well that it's a strongly import dependent and food or consumption economy, and a lot of other dynamics are import driven. All right, so there's also a conversation of food security and ability to produce our own, where they strongly threaten, like I mentioned earlier, on structural issues and insecurity challenges as well. So what the IMF talks about literally points to the effects, all right, not the causal dynamics. And in this case, if any reforms were to be positioned around reducing food inflation, then it has to be positioned on the causal dynamics bit and not the effects bit, in my own opinion.
Thank you so much for your time, Gospel Obele. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time this morning. You're watching the Global Business Report here on Arise News.